Here's why I think we are doomed. I just watched a video on Telegraph that explained how Muscovites were adjusting to Napoleon's tactics.
But perhaps the most important element, one which may have serious ramifications for Kyiv in this war, is how Napoleon's enemies had themselves, not quickly, but gradually, evolved their overarching battle plan in response to their earlier failures. They had begun to model their armies on Napoleon's. They predicted his movements, they adopted his weaponry or found ways to neutralize them. In short, they learned.
And the same thing they're doing now. We see that they're adapting our FPV drones, quickly adapting to have those protection against drones on their tanks, other vehicles. Anyway, they are a formidable opponent that adapts. I think it's only a blessing that they cannot reverse engineer the programming required to replicate Javelin missile or something more high-tech, but they're learning fast, and if we're risking losing this war, and by we I imply democracies of our planet Earth, we're risking to lose the war to a dictatorship that we democracies have fed. We've been buying from them their resources, we've been selling them our highest tech. The success of modern day Russia is due to democracies, the same way China's success is because of trade with democracies. But both of those regimes don't have high regard for human rights. So in a way, democracies of this world are hypocrites. Hypocrites because it appears like they only care about humans, about human lives, about human rights, only if it's within their borders. If it's outside of their borders, it's business as usual, party, cocktail time, $20 per cocktail time in any bar in New York or Amsterdam. So that was the intro. The other part that related to here is what is hindering the success in this war? What is stopping Ukraine to retake the conquered territory? The only thing that is stopping Ukraine are the means to accomplish it. Those means are provided by democracies, by NATO, by United States, and anyway, from Japan, New Zealand, Austria, all democracies unite. Success of it directly depends on this help. Its only limitation, help from democracies of this world. I kind of made a rough calculation. What would Ukraine need? How much money would Ukraine need to win? And I think 2% of all democracies' GDP would be way more enough to win. I think the calculated value, 2% of all of the democracy, would be nearly $1 trillion. Europe so far has helped Ukraine on like a fraction of that, like $40 billion or something like that. United States as well. But basically, if everybody in democratic country would say, here you go, 2% of my assets and liquidity, what I have in 2%, if I share it with, the war would stop. The international law would be restored, and some important consequences would have been concluded. Hey, we should probably stop feeding dictatorships and tyrants, because they will end up turning against us. It's like Lenin said, we're gonna buy the rope by which we will hang the capitalists that we bought it from. This is what tyrants are doing. Given Moscow's will, it would stretch to Lisbon in Portugal. It's one of their dreams, from Lisbon to Vladivostok. Constantinople is certainly on their list.
Турция. И вернем в состав нашего государства то, что исторически принадлежит нам. Константинополь!
They only stop when democracies will tell them to stop. This is the will of any criminals that goes unpunished. He commits a crime, he's not punished, encouraged to make more and bigger crime. And we see how Muscovy was, actually just today, I learned how Muscovy completely got away with invading Georgia by staging they were separatists. The same scenario they did in Ukraine. They armed collaborators, they infiltrated Ukraine with their troops without the insignia, or as they called them, volunteers. They totally orchestrated the propagandistic part about it, about repression of Russian speakers and stuff like that. So in Georgia they did that, like repression of Abkhaz speakers. They completely got away with pulling it off in 1993. And I learned about this because the Ukrainian helicopters, Ukrainian army saved nearly 15,000 people, evacuating them from mountains in Georgia because they were fleeing this hybrid Russian invasion. In reality, that conflict would have never happened if not Moscow's involvement. Same in Ukraine, Donbass. There was never a threat to any Russian speakers in Ukraine. So they got away with that. Then they got away with Chechnya, where a small region of Muscovy wanted to secede from that empire. Moscow drowned in blood more than 100,000 people in that war. 100,000 people they just killed because they wiped, the carpet bombed the Grozny. Civilian population, who cares? They didn't care. And Europe accepted it. Nobody cared that they did that. Nobody cared that they killed 100,000 people of civilian people in Chechnya in 2 wars. And that was the peak of their democracy. Ever, this state, Moscovia, had the most democracy was during Yeltsin. The first Chechen war started with him. And the Abkhazia war started with him. And Pridnestrovia in Moldova started with him. The unrecognized state within Moldova, again, supported by, guess whom? Moscow peacekeepers. Keepers. Moscow got us fooled. Here's the thing. I don't think people inherently are hypocrites. People are hypocrites only when they are not aware they're hypocrites, right? Although maybe not every time, like I have a cat, but I do eat burgers. Anyway, humans are complex creatures, but inherently in relation to this, Europeans are being hypocritical, pretending to care about human rights, but only within their borders. Like behind their borders, they're not really humans anymore. Moscow's committing another genocide on Ukrainians. Chinese are committing genocide on Burmese. Other atrocities Chinese are doing. And all meanwhile, democracies who pretend to be concerned about human rights are trading with them, making them richer, feeding them basically for decades. And there we go. You fed a beast. Pridnestrovia, Abkhazia, invasion of Georgia, annexation of Crimea, nobody cared. Started a war in Donbass, nobody cared. Shut down MH17, nobody cared. Had a state-run doping program, and nobody cared. Business as usual with terrorists. The way Putin treated Kursk sailors who didn't provide them help. The way he treated other hostages in, what was this case? It's gonna appear here. This guy has so much blood on his hands, but nobody freaking cared. And some people still don't care. Like Orban in Hungary, Slovakia just elected a pro-Moscow government. Netherlands are electing, I heard, a pro-Moscow guy. United States has a huge pro-Moscow guy, Tucker Carlson, operating within on the largest audience. So back what I was saying, humans, I don't think humans inherently are hypocrites in this case, is because humans are misinformed. Nobody knows Moscow got away with crimes in Abkhazia to start with. Nobody knows what atrocities they did. I mean, like, general public doesn't know. I think if people would understand cause and effect, consequences, the long-term investment benefit of looking 2 steps ahead, then giving away 2% would be a bliss. So ultimately, what I think it comes down to, not hypocrisy, but information. We don't still understand how important information is, education is. Nobody pays money for you to speak truth, but people will pay money to spend lies, which is what Moscow is doing. They're spending billions of dollars. They have state-run troll bot program that spams comments, whatever they need, 24/7. They have trolls on, and that is a public knowledge too. Trolling farms, they have propaganda, they have sponsored politicians, they give bribes, they weaponized immigration, they meddle in the elections. I mean, we all kind of know that, but we don't give it significance. Nobody like kind of comes out and says, hey, this is the truth, this will be the consequences. People are not being taught of cause and effect, I guess, from childhood or from early education. I don't know, but ultimately I think this is where Europeans will have to learn it their hard, or not Europeans, but democracies would have to learn it the hard way. You cannot be pro-human rights in just limited part of Earth. By no means you should feed a dictator and deal business with them. Of course, appeasing dictators is laughable. Like Elon Musk is proposing to give part of Ukraine to a world war, as if that is going to work. That's just, yeah. I think what I'm explaining now is a level above the appeasement doesn't work. It comes down now, we're kind of all doomed. Or democracies are not donating 2% of their GDP, not even close to that for Ukraine to win. And for Ukraine to win, we only need support. We're only limited by that support. So without that, we're doomed. And with Moscow learning ever faster and adapting ever faster and getting closer with China ever closer, will they prevail over Ukraine before their economy collapses? Which is another part of the thing. Like democracies aren't doing enough to make sure Moscow's economy will collapse. The hypocrisy, the ignorance, the blindness, the gaps in our education. I guess just like in the Second World War, we have to learn the hard way again about human rights, about education, about importance of information. History is a great teacher, but it has terrible students. Thank you for listening to my spontaneous speech. Let me know if you agree that we are all doomed, especially Moscow, China, Iran, North Korea, Belarus, all the dictatorships aligning against all the democracies. It's up to democracies to make a stance, to grow a pair and say, no, we're not gonna allow this genocide to happen. We're not gonna be trading with those who are violating human rights. Let me know what you think the best solution from it. Let me know maybe if you think the doom is not imminent, because to me it looks like no countermeasures, drastic countermeasures be taken to help Ukraine. Moscow has good chances to succeed in like 2 years. We'll see.
People are dying on the front lines. You think it's a joke?
Why do I care? Why do I care what's going on in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia? And I'm serious. Like, why do I care?
I'll tell you why.
And why shouldn't I root for Russia, which I am?